Hello and welcome to the Everything is Black and White podcast. I am Andy Musgrove and he is Aaron Stokes. Ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to say these words. Newcastle United have won the League Cup and the wait for a major trophy which has gone on since 1969 is over. Aaron, we're back at the hotel. A few Newcastle United fans in there swigging back the pints. Has it quite sunk in yet? What's just happened?
I don't think so. I think for me it's probably going to be tomorrow morning. Getting the train back up to Newcastle is probably when I think it's going to be it. I mean, what are we at now? 11:05, so 5 hours after kick-off. It doesn't feel real. I still feel full of adrenaline. I don't think I'm going to cry anymore. I think I've got all my tears out before I left Wembley. Does it sink in for you? Does it feel real yet?
No, I keep getting little reminders, and we've just quickly gone to Mackie D's. Other fast food outlets are available. And we were just walking back then, I took a bite out of a Big Mac and then I did a big jump and said, we've just won the cup! So I'm getting little moments like that.
Yeah, all those London tourists who didn't know what you're on about were a little bit taken aback when you did that. But I think it is slowly starting to hit home, isn't it, what they've done. And we spoke to Eddie Howe after the game and said to him, has it sank in? Now bearing in mind, that was what, an hour after full time? He said it hadn't, he said it was slowly starting to, but I think even for Howe and the players, it will probably take a day or two as well.
Oh, most certainly. I mean, they've gone off to Box Park just outside of the Wembley Stadium. Images of San Finale opening champagne and the crowd below are doing the rounds, and they're going to have a really good time. And it's come at the right time as well with the international break. I know a lot of them will be going on international duty, but the rest of them will be there to just take this all in, have a nice relaxing time. I know they're going abroad, those who aren't on international duty, but you get the feeling they'll be afforded a few days off. You mentioned there crying in the stadium. Now there's another video that's gone out on our YouTube channel of a diary of the day from kind of kick-off all the way through. A few players being interviewed, Graham Jones being interviewed, which he was just full of emotion. It's also a clip of us at the final whistle where, well, I'm certainly in tears. I couldn't stop crying. But you know, this is what this club does to you, doesn't it?
Yeah, I got into the ground and it was only really when I got into Wembley that I started to feel a little bit emotional. Now this was probably about an hour before kick-off is when it started to hit me and I started to feel really nervous. And as the game was going on, even when it was at 0-0, I felt myself sort of with a lump in my throat. I don't know if you felt the same. And then weirdly when they won and it was 2-0 and it was the final whistle, because obviously we were both working and had our heads down and it was all a bit manic, I sort of shelved that for a bit, and it wasn't really until the trophy lift, the celebration for the fans, us doing the pod and having to actually speak it into existence and talk about the fact they've done it. But after that, it was waterworks. But if I'm totally honest, I've spoken to a lot of people since the full-time whistle and they all said they were crying. I've had texts from friends who said they would be exactly the same as us. There's no shame in it. We've waited long enough. We know how much it means to the city, to the club, to the fans, to the people, to the team, to Eddie Howe. So yeah, I suspect we probably weren't the only ones to shed a tear or two inside Wembley.
I mean, I'll be honest, as soon as I saw the scarves go up for the first time and then the big waiver flag come out, I was gone. I was just holding back the emotion, and then when Dan Burns scored right on the whistle at half time, I couldn't contain. I was nearly in tears then as well. I mean, we haven't even mentioned the score. Newcastle won 2-1 in case you've been living under a rock, which was my score prediction, by the way.
A lot of people, my mum and dad had a bet on 2-1 as well, so very lucrative day for them.
That was walking down Wembley Way, and I must have spoken to 25-30 people for Vox Park. That video went out before kick-off, and pretty much the majority said 2-1, which was quite something, and it did come true. But let's talk about the opener. It's fair to say that Newcastle, I think, were the better team in that first half, and they deserved their lead. They had the better sights of goal, they had the better chances, and then they got one through Dan Burn. It was a tremendous header, and I always talk about my favourite Newcastle United header being the one Gary Speed scored, which was very close to the edge of the box, and he heads it home, top corner. This is not a too dissimilar distance from the goal. He's so far out, Dan Burn, and he's directed that into the corner. It's hard enough to do that from close range, let alone you're beyond the penalty spot here. What a superb header.
Yeah, brilliant. He had a lot to do, didn't he, from that situation. Why on earth Liverpool had little old Alexis McAllister marking him 5'7", I do not know. But Eddie Howe interestingly said after the game and made a real point of it, how they've been working on those set pieces as if they planned it. And also, let's talk about the fact of who the goal scorer was. You know, we had a conversation yesterday, didn't we, when we were sort of in and around London, as to who would be our sort of dream goal scorer for the winner. And it was a really good question that was put out by someone on Twitter, and a lot of the replies to that were either Bruno or Dan Burn. And I think when we're talking about weeks that will live long in the memory, Dan Burns is one. First ever call up for England, out of nowhere, by the way, for a new manager.
But deserved.
Oh, massively deserved. And then 2, scoring at Wembley for your boyhood club, the first goal, and then going on to win it. I mean, you spoke to Dan Burn after the game, didn't you? We spoke to him in the mix zone, and I think he summed it up pretty well, didn't he, his feelings?
Yeah, and he's done plenty of interviews on TV as well. But you know what he was? He was excited and he was buzzing, but he's also kind of calm and collective. He knows that he's got a job to do in the next few days when he goes to that England squad. He's got a chance of playing in the World Cup, for goodness sake. So he's going to celebrate, and then he's going to get back down to business and continue to be the professional and put in those performances which has got him in the position for an England call-up. I tell you what, if people thought he was there by accident or just by favour, the performance today, he was brilliant again today. And he's been Newcastle United's best centre-back for me. And to score the opener, because the first goal was always going to be the key goal. Mm-hmm. The first goal was the most important one. And to get that moments before half-time as well, you couldn't have picked a better time to score. And like you say, probably a better player to score, because I think most people wanted him to have a massive part. And he did have a massive part in winning the first trophy for Newcastle since 1969. It
was just dreamland stuff, wasn't it? And I actually felt, and maybe it was a bit naive, and maybe I was getting caught up in the sort of fairy tale of the day, but as soon as Dan Burn scored, I thought, okay, I think Newcastle are going to do this now. And not only because they took the lead, and as you say, at a crucial time, they were the better team from minute one today. They showed up from minute one. The fans did their job before the game. Really, really impressive support as ever, as we knew it would be. But from minute one, Newcastle won every first ball and every second ball, and they looked like the team that were going to go on. Liverpool did not have a touch in Newcastle's box until the 45th minute, I want to say. Absolutely ridiculous. So Newcastle were good value for the lead, good value for the win in general, and as you say there, Dan Burn, fantastic. But if I'm totally honest, and it's not just because they've won the cup, I generally would struggle, if that was just a normal game, to pick any player that didn't play well. I thought, to a man, every single one of them, from the back to the front, was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, and there were some really key moments very early on. You know, Nick Pope, for example, having to come out of his box at times and just getting that confidence for the ball at his feet. I thought that was really important, and just that, you know, showed a bit of physicality in the middle, because the midfield battle was going to be key, and Harvey Barnes as well. I mean, for all there was a little bit of criticism of Harvey Barnes and Tino Livramento against West Ham because they hadn't played together, and it showed. You watch that highlights back tonight of Newcastle versus Liverpool, and you'd think those guys had been playing for years together. They were absolutely brilliant going down that left, and Liverpool had zero answer for them.
Tino Livramento especially, I think that was probably one of his best games in a Newcastle shirt. And it was so needed for 2 big reasons, not just because it was a cup final, but one, because you've got Mohamed Salah there.
Who?
Exactly.
Where's he tonight?
The man who we thought was going to play.
Pockets.
Exactly. And 2, and this is less so obviously because of the emotion of the day, but because doubts have been creeping in about Tino Livramento. They've been creeping in about his form, and they've definitely been creeping in about whether he can play left back until the end of the season. But I think today showed that he definitely can.
Anyone who was given the task of keeping Mo Salah quiet at left back when it's not your favourite position, there would have been doubts. But he shut everybody with a fantastic performance. Him and Harvey Barnes are looking like on the same wavelength. Brilliant performance by them. Kieran Trippier on the other side. I mean, he was brilliant in that first half, and then he pulls up. He runs back on. He's had some either magic spray or cream put on his hamstring, and we turned to each other and went, "Oh no!"
We thought he was coming off.
Yeah, we did, because he was really struggling. You could see he was limping about the place, and he was trying to stretch out. He didn't look comfortable. Thankfully, he got through it, and Newcastle needed him. His experience, his leadership, but also just his defensive attributes as well.
Yeah, he was brilliant on and off the ball today. I think there was a moment in the first half where Trippier headed the ball back to Pope, and then he just was screaming at Nick Pope in the defence. He's just saying, calm it down. And it was that type of thing that we've seen, you know, for years from Kieran Trippier. It's what he brings off the ball just as important as what he brings on the ball. He was fantastic today. He kept Diaz quiet, he kept Jota quiet. As I say though, you know, every single. We could go through the entire 11 today, Nick Pope included. You know, and they all had absolutely fantastic games.
Made a fantastic save. He had one save to make, and it was an absolutely fantastic effort from Jones, Curtis Jones it was.
Just came off the bench.
Fantastic save, you know, palms it up and over. And, you know, in that second half as well, we really got to see what Newcastle United were all about. Of course, they got the second goal through Alexander Isak, who I loved watching him today. I thought he was pretty quiet in the first half and he was marked out of the game. And I turned to you and I said, he's not had a sniff at all.
Yeah.
Obviously, he gets the goal, which we'll talk about in a moment. But what I enjoyed was his want and desire to have the ball early. There was two examples in the first half where he turned around and he berated Jacob Murphy, and then I think the other one was maybe Harvey Barnes, and said, you've got to give it to me quicker. So happy he got his goal.
We were watching him, weren't we, in the first half, and he was just peeling off Canate on the shoulder of him, ready to go, and he was waiting for the ball to come, and as you say, Murphy put a cross in, which was probably a couple of seconds too late. Bruno could have probably found him down the channel, and he was getting frustrated. And we've spoken about recently, haven't we, when Alexander Isak has these quiet games where he doesn't get service, he's really sort of ineffective, but today he didn't let that stop him, did he? He was still full of running, took his goal superbly well, could have had another, obviously slightly offside.
He felt like a man who rose to the occasion, and it was a fantastic finish as well. I mean, that goal sums up everything we've been talking about for the last 5 minutes, because it was work between Barnes and Livramento down the left. The ball comes into the box. Murphy heads it down, and Isak finishes it. And it was a really nice goal, really good goal.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good goal and at a very crucial time. Because, you know, my sort of doubt at the start of the first half were, Liverpool going to come out the traps and blow Newcastle away, and is the pressure going to get to them? But I don't know about you, but I think as soon as it went 2-0, you felt the pressure massively lift, I think.
Do you know what? I wasn't in that mindset at the start of the second half, because it just felt like Liverpool came out and started the second half like they finished the first. There wasn't anything about them. Now, they are one of the best sides in Europe. They deserve to win the Premier League. They're going to be fantastic Premier League champions. But they just did not turn up today. Whether it was because, in the eyes of some Reds, it's the Mickey Mouse Cup, or maybe they've got a hangover from PSG. Do you know what? It really doesn't matter to us at all, because Newcastle United turned up, and the fans won the battle in the first kind of few moments in the build up to kick off with where Newcastle United were against Liverpool. Two passionate fan bases on show today, but one definitely wanted it more. That transferred onto the pitch, and when you needed a response from Liverpool, if you're a Liverpool fan, you didn't get it, and Newcastle United just had to maintain the levels, and they did. And look, that could have finished 3 or 4-0 before Liverpool got their goal back.
Funnily enough, I think for large spells of the game, maybe not towards the end, it felt very much like Manchester United against Newcastle 2 years ago, but the other way around, where Newcastle were in control and Liverpool, no matter, you know, played pretty poorly. Let's be honest. You know, that was them so far off the best, and Newcastle, on the other hand, actually played really well and never really looked like losing it. Okay, there was maybe 4 minutes at the end where, you know, it was 2-1, Kaiser scores, and
but you know, even after Kaiser scores, I'm not concerned. I know the board goes up in 8 minutes and then he scored, but I'm not concerned, because I just felt like...
Not even a little bit concerned, because I was a little bit concerned.
No, like, because I just felt Newcastle were in such control, and they'd shown enough about keeping their heads and their leadership, because the hardest task was going into half-time 1-0 up, because we've seen this season where they do very well in the first half, and then they do poorly in the second half, and that's happened 3 or 4 times this season. That was the biggest task, and they came through that with flying colours. Isak gets the goal, and from that moment on, Liverpool were just careless in possession. They couldn't pick a pass, and you could see, but, you know, they were down with the confidence. Okay, they go and get this goal. But I was never worried. I was never concerned they were going to get it, because I just felt Newcastle throughout the game had shown enough control and professionalism, and there wasn't that like emotion that sometimes there is. I'm thinking back to that game. Look at AC Milan, that game, where emotion got the better of them because of what was on offer. Here it was much more clinical. It was much more business-like. So when that goal went in, it was all about just doing your job, and they did it. And they went to 100 minutes just about, and they did it perfectly.
And I think it's probably worth mentioning, and it was something that was brought up for weeks before the final, is the preparation of the game. Every time you spoke to Eddie Howe, the questions were being asked of him, what are you going to do differently? What have you learned? And we saw pre-game that they made so many better changes, which actually worked wonders.
Staying out of London.
They stayed outside of London. They weren't on Wembley Way like last time. They could go for a little walk this morning. They were taking out the noise of it. They weren't, wrapped up in what was happening at Covent Garden. They weren't letting the emotion get to them. It was very professionally done this time around. Eddie Howe made them travel down last night, essentially as if it was a normal away game.
Someone said to us, didn't they? Connected to the club said it felt like any Premier League game.
It felt like you could. He said you could say we're playing Watford at home today and away, and it would. We would believe you.
Yeah.
That was the mentality.
Until they got to Wembley.
Yeah, it is just another away game. It is not a cup final. Because we know 2 years ago, that is exactly what let them down. The occasion got the better of them. It probably wasn't.
They took their phones off them last night. We're locked them in the safe. You're not looking at social media. But right, that's the kind of preparation that a bit like big clubs do this. It's not just about what you get on the pitch or the training pitch or the big or the advantages you get through your physios or whatever. It's also about the little things like just making sure you're in the right hotel, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Well, we all remember the scenes last year, didn't we? Where there's photos of Elliot Anderson peeking out of his curtains at 9 o'clock in the morning on match day, and he's just seen a sea of Geordies. That's not what the players will want going into a game like that. They need to have clear heads, and they got that this time. And I think that's just a sign again of Eddie Howe learning, growing as a manager. The club is growing; they're becoming more professional. And I think now, sorry, I just had a sudden moment of they've won the cup there, because I was about to say they've won a cup now, they've got the monkey off the back, and you suspect now, going into these competitions, the confidence will be high that they can now add to that, and that it's not going to be a flash in the pan. I'm
so excited to see what comes now. And speaking to Bruno and Joe Linton after the game and Dan Burn, it was all about what's next. So this is the start, isn't it? And fingers crossed it is. And I've spoken to John Gibson as well. We rang him on the way out, and he said, "Make the most of it, lads. I'm hoping that you have more success than I did after 1969, and fingers crossed we do." Just a quick word for the midfield three, because Bruno, captain, fantastic. Joe Linton, absolute warrior. I mean, there was a chance for a Liverpool player. It might have been Jota, I think it was, midway through the second half. Yeah. Was it, when he's played in, and he gets into the box like an absolute tank and clears the ball. And then Tonali, what an engine on him as well. There was a chance for Harvey Barnes to get the ball in the box, and it fell to him actually on the edge box. I think Tonali takes a shot, it's cleared, and Liverpool break with pace, and Tonali just gets back in the action and stops it, and he really need to get that foot in. They're very different players, all three of them, I think, and I know there was a lot of discussion about how they can all fit in there together, but I think they all have different attributes, and we saw that today at Wembley. Yeah, they complement each other so well, and we knew that midfield battle was going to be key. Ryan Gravenberch has probably been one of Europe's most informed players this season, and he didn't have a sniff today at all. I mean, there was a moment in, I think it was something ridiculous, like the 96th minute, Newcastle were 2-1 up, holding on to the game, and Sandro Tonali sort of barges Virgil van Dijk to the floor, which not many players can do, especially not after 96 minutes of running. But he looked as if he just strolled off the bench and he was a fresh player. That is just what you get from him. Bruno today channeled that energy really well, that he was a leader, but he wasn't over the edge, but he played on the edge. And if I'm totally honest, I'm not sure Joe Linton lost the tackle. So when you add all three of them together, it's exactly what you want. So yeah, absolutely brilliant, all three of them. That is, a massive part of why the game was won, and it was because it was in the middle of the park. Tonali, so happy for him. As we said, he's celebrating the box part right now, but after the time he had, deserved ban to come out of this season with a cup and hopefully Champions League football. Well, I mean, that's absolutely right, but I think you can say that about all three of them, because obviously Tonali had that ban. Bruno has, came to this club, and said, I want to, they were in the relegation zone when he came, and he was talking about playing the Champions League and winning trophies. He's now doing that as a captain. And then you've got Joe Linton, who came with a big price tag, really struggled, and we all know the story that's happened there. So all three of them have actually got their own really unique and quirky stories about why this win's so important. You can obviously say the same about Dan Burn, you can say the same about Jacob Murphy, all these players, and we were talking about it on the tube back, weren't we? Like, this isn't Newcastle United who's like bought their way to silverware, and it's all these expensive players from abroad and a really experienced manager. This is Eddie Howe, who's experiencing this for the first time. Jacob Murphy, Sean Longstaff, Dan Burn, and that's what makes it more special. Yeah. We also got to see Callum Wilson and Emil Kraft as well coming on. Anyone else? Did I miss anyone? I think did Longstaff get on? Longstaff? No, he was going to bring Longstaff on, but then he switched with Murphy. Gordon enjoying the celebrations at the end as well. Yeah. That was good to see him. Sula.
Yeah.
That might be the fastest I've seen him moving, and he does sprint quite a lot when he gets into. He was off that bench like an absolute rocket.
Yeah.
The celebrations, unbelievable. The players were on the pitch anyhow. I mean, there's so many things to take away from it. And then anyhow, after he's lifted the cup, he's then thrust towards the fans by Bruno, which I thought was a really nice one, because anyhow's the kind of character who's happy to sit in the background. It's not about me, it's about the team and the squad, and that's good because it's a team game. But at the same time, I hope he gets the opportunity to listen to all the plaudits that's coming his way, because Eddie Howe is taking this side from near enough certain relegation into the Champions League. He's then established them as a European side, fighting for European qualification, and now he's won the first cup domestically in 70 years. Eddie, if you stumble across this podcast, maybe with a bad head tomorrow, I hope you sit down and you take these compliments, because you deserve all the praise that comes your way from us two and every single fan, that if they got the chance to say thank you, they would do.
Yeah, he got asked in the press conference after Eddie Howe where he wants a statue built, and it was a very typical Eddie Howe answer that, it's a team effort. But the thing with Eddie Howe is that, like, no matter how high Newcastle get, and it frustrates me at times, but I know why he does it, but I sit in the press conferences and I just want to see Eddie Howe just sort of let loose a bit. I don't want to hear, you've just had this amazing win. I don't want to hear about, it's about the staff and it's about the team. As you say, he can't take a compliment. And I think there was just a few moments today where we saw him really, really let go. Watch the replay of when Alexander Isak scores to put them 2-0 up, and he is beaming on the touchline. And then that video, as you say, when Bruno pushes him towards the fans and he's lifting the cup up, and he doesn't just do it once, he does it 3 or 4 times. And I think he's thinking, I'm going to have these 30 seconds to a minute, enjoy this. And then he came into the press conference and he was a lot more jovial than usual, naturally. But towards the end of the presser, it was sort of back to the Eddie of old, where it was talking about the team and, they've got to go and keep doing it in the league. And he didn't want to talk about the Europa Conference, which we haven't even talked about. They're obviously now guaranteed Europe. But one thing he did say, and this is very unlike Eddie Howe, is that he's going to put the coaching books and the analysis away for 2 or 3 days. And then he's going to pick them back up later in the week. So he is going to let himself loose. And he also basically did say that he's going to let the players off the leash for the next couple of days as well. Which is
I was out in the mix and talking to the players while you were talking to the manager, so it looks like I missed out on all the fun. But just to point out as well, because a lot of people that I've spoken to have said, he's now #1 manager ahead of Kevin Keegan and Sir Bob Robson, which is fantastic. You're allowed that opinion. But a little word for Joe Harvey, because the man he's matched is Joe Harvey, who was the last man to manage Newcastle United to a major trophy. So he's made history, and he's on the level of a man like Joe.
Does he get a statue?
Do you know what? I don't think he would want one. I think you want more success, and you want to be away from the club as well. I don't think you want a statue when you're still manager, or connected really in terms of an important role. If you're an ambassador maybe, or a club legend, but you're not connected in a managerial role, because things can always go south. So I don't think you'd want one, and it won't go south because Eddie's great, but I don't think you'd want one. I don't think you'd get one because there's more to achieve. Yes, he's going to be enjoying tonight, but he'll wake up tomorrow morning and he'll be thinking, right, what's next? We've got Brentford, 2nd of April. Yeah?
Who cares?
Champions League is next. But also, as Aaron said, they qualified for Europe, which has probably been overlooked by some.
Yeah, Eddie was asked about that in the presser and sort of gave an unusual answer to that. He said he didn't realise that was the case. I'm sure he did, probably.
A man like Eddie's going to know.
But I think that is essentially his message, saying, well, it doesn't matter that we're in the Conference League now, because we've got bigger aspirations than that. They're obviously just outside the top 5, pretty much on goal difference. It is all still to play for. And once the coaching books come back out in a couple of days and the hangovers have worn off, then it is back to business. And as you say, with Brentford next. So I think for me, and I was reading some old Amanda Staveley quote this week about when they appointed Eddie, and there was one line that I took from it. It was like, we want this manager to come in and build us to be the team that we want to be. And a lot of people laughed and said, well, he's going to keep you up and he's going to save you from relegation, and then he's probably going to get moved on for a Conte or Mourinho. And I think actually now what we're seeing is she was right. He is going to take this team long into the future. He's already done wonders. I think for me, after today, he's already a legend. I think no matter what happens after this, he will always be talked about in the same breath as the Keegan and the Robson and all this. Whether he's better or not, it's for other people.
And Joe Harvey.
And Joe Harvey, of course, your favourite.
Do you know what? I think what it does is it just takes pressure off everybody's shoulders. The fans, because they've waited so long, we've waited so long as fans for that trophy. Anyhow, because there's always that chatter about maybe being moved on for a more high-profile manager, and also the owners, because it is so important to get that first trophy. The monkey off your back. And I genuinely believe that coming down 2 years ago and losing is actually probably the best thing that happened to Newcastle United, because we got it out of our systems, but we learned from it. And now getting this first trophy, we're going to build on that and learn from it. And it's so, so important. The scenes at full time,
you just never forget them, will you?
Unbelievable. Man of the match, Dan Burn? You said it was hard to pick?
Yeah, really hard to pick.
On the fence.
I'm going to go down Burn, but I think honourable mention should go to Joe Linton and Tino. But I think those are the top three. You could give it to anyone.
Yeah. We just want to thank you guys for tuning into all the content that we put out over the weekend. We know there's been a lot of videos and a lot of podcasts, so hopefully you enjoyed it. And do you know what? It's a privilege to do this. It's a privilege to do it with someone like Aaron as well, really good friend, and we've Newcastle United fans at heart. And what a weekend!
And we've got to do it all over again for the Monday show. This is the Sunday show on a Sunday, and then tomorrow's the Monday show. So we get to do an hour tomorrow, don't we, of reliving it. And I think tomorrow the podcast will probably be very different, because if I'm totally honest, you could ask me right now what I've just talked to you about for 20 minutes, and I probably couldn't tell you, because I'm still just on another planet. Whereas tomorrow it will probably have sank in after a couple of those have been sank in. So yeah, as you say, an absolute privilege, especially to do it like you. We love doing this, don't we? And I think weekends like this make it all worth it.
Yeah, and this is 0%. I haven't come off the wagon, so to speak. But cheers, Aaron.
Cheers.
And cheers to you guys and girls watching. And just remind yourself, Newcastle United have finally won a trophy. A 70-year wait for a domestic trophy. 56 years since the last major piece of silverware. Enjoy it, take it all in, and we'll see you guys very soon.